Many want to defend the clause 191 remaining in the bill, but with some reservations. Before that, I do want to acknowledge the public interest in this issue and a popular worry that it's all about legalising abortion up to birth. That is what is being discussed. And worse than that, people believe that somehow this legal change was rushed through the other place almost by the back door. Actually, legalising up to birth is not what this is contained within clause 191, but I actually have sympathy with the public confusion over that and criticism about how the clause was added to the bill in the other place. The noble Lord Carter spoke to some of this, and everybody else has now mentioned how just little time was spent discussing this in the other place. And I think more important than that was the fact that most people didn't know it was coming. Most members of the public were not expecting such a big change in the law. And wherever you stand on this, abortion might be a settled entitlement for women, and it is. I mean, most people accept that abortion exists in society, but it's still a morally charged, difficult discussion for some. It's got conscience involved in it. There are contestations, certainly about when life begins. And we can't deny it that anything that talks to going beyond 24 weeks, and even as we've heard today, 24 weeks is contentious or becoming contentious, which it shouldn't, but it is, then I think that we should note that the public are perfectly right to be a bit furious and feel that they've been snubbed, that somehow the democratic accountability system has been snubbed. And I say that because I think what this debate needs, actually, is more discussion, more depth, and I'm glad to hear that we're getting some of it here. But we certainly didn't get it when it was brought into the bill in the House of Commons. That's led to a big backlash, and as it happens, that's not necessarily the best atmosphere in which you can conduct a rational, reasoned debate. I mean, I kind of don't even know how sex selection abortion got in here, but suddenly I'm reading all these articles saying because of this clause, there's going to be sex selection. I mean, the truth of the matter is there are some concerns that particularly in certain migrant communities where there is a patriarchal atmosphere, young women are being asked and forced to consider sex selection abortions. We should do something about that. That's terrible, blah, blah. This doesn't facilitate it any more than anything else, but somehow the kitchen sink's been thrown at this particular issue. Now, I wanted to just I mean, luckily the noble Lord and learned Lord Panic's not in his place, because I did want to try and untangle some law, which might, of course, be a disaster. But I do think that despite the best efforts of the noble lady Baroness Thornton, who's perfectly reasonably kept trying to explain what is and isn't in the law, we just need to get a few bits sorted. The Abortion Act of 1967 did not decriminalise abortion. It simply made it legal under certain circumstances, which is that you be signed off by 2 doctors, and if the woman meets one of 7 criteria. In other words, it creates a legal defence for doctors against the 1861 Offences Against the Person Act and the criminal law. Now, I've always argued, actually, for full decriminalisation of abortion, but actually, ironically, Amendment 191 doesn't do that. Amendment 191, tabled by Tonia Antonese, sorry. I know. I'm mortified. Anyway, in the other place, Hansard will correct me, is more limited, simply disapplying existing criminal law for women acting in relation to their own pregnancy at any gestation. And it is very important to understand it's limited in that way. It's not a change in the law regarding the provision of abortion services in a healthcare setting, or it doesn't change the grounds for abortion, the time limit of 24 weeks, the requirement for 2 doctors, non-consensual or coerced abortion is still a crime at any gestation. All these things are still true. So in other words, it's actually quite limited. That might be, you might be problems with that, but that's true. anyone who assists a woman to obtain an abortion outside the law, and this includes professional, medical professionals, is liable for prosecution. So if you're coerced by it, the coercer is committing a crime and can be therefore caught. So I just think it's important that we get a sense. What it does do is it ensure that the criminal law will not be used against any woman who ends her own pregnancy, even if this is over the 24-week limit. But the way people have been talking here today, you'd think that this was a green light to incentivise widespread abortions to birth, as the lurid headlines would have it, as though women have just been waiting for clause 191 so that they can carry on getting pregnant longer or stay pregnant longer, just so they can rush off and terminate later and get away with it. I mean, that's the way it's being discussed. It's like, all these women are going to go, great, I don't have to go at 12 weeks, I'm going to last out for 25, 26, and then rush down the road. So I don't think that's what is actually happening. Now, ironically, a lot of the discussion is focused on a general squeamishness, and one can understand this, about late abortions. The policy target, despite the discussion being about late abortions and babies and so on, actually, ironically, if you listen to these amendments in this discussion, the policy target of many of these amendments is to attack pills by post. And the irony of that is, and we've just published at the Academy of Ideas a brilliant essay by Dr. Ellie Lee on this, is that pills by post are a fantastic step forward for early terminations. And yet we are demonising pills by post. We're demonising telemedicine in general. Actually, what this allows is for women to be able to get access to the drugs that they need to have an early termination safely and at home. And I mean, it's much easier to access these medication than going to a clinic or going to the pharmacy or going to your GP. And some people will say, oh my goodness me, that's a disaster. Whereas I think it's brilliant, because it means that women won't delay in applying for them, and they will therefore be able to have early abortion. Now, when I was campaigning around this sort of thing, I was campaigning on the as early as possible, as late as necessary. And I have to say that I'm delighted that as early as possible is getting earlier, and we should celebrate that. And there's a danger that the reaction and the backlash against 191 is going to make accessing the means of early abortions to be taken away from people. I just want to finish off with a sort of general point. Wherever we stand on this, women's reproductive rights are a very important thing for us to defend in a modern Western society. In February, last February, the Taliban removed the contraceptive pill from Afghanistan's pharmacies. That might sound very dramatic, but we all know how horrifying that is. We know what it means, and we're repulsed at any society that compels women to bear children they don't want. And it's why, over the years, we fought for contraception and why we fought for the right to abortion. We didn't fight for the right to abortion in order to be barbaric or because we're interested in killing babies in the womb or any of these things. We fought for it so that we would be able to control our reproduction, not the state, not the priest, not anyone else, not the Taliban. And actually, abortion is accepted as a reproductive right and as a norm throughout the world. And lots of statistics have been used. You know, in the UK, 87% of adults believe that women should have access to safe and legal abortions. Now, I'm not saying that 191 is perfect. I actually really do not like the way it was brought in the other place. But I do think when it comes to fundamentals, that I would much prefer to ensure that we don't criminalise some women for the mistakes of maybe a late abortion or, as we've heard, the terrible situation where they didn't even know they were pregnant or they miscarried. And the backlash against it is in danger of setting women's rights back. And I know that even pro-life peers will not want to be responsible for that.
My Lord,